So today we're going to continue on in our series about vicarious trauma, vicarious resilience. This is one of our more popular offerings for workshops at Be Strong Families. We're just spending the week talking about little snippets from the training that we feel are important. If you want to ever sign up for our whole vicarious trauma, vicarious resilience workshop, you can do so off of our websites. Hi, Pat, I see you. And Carmen. Oh, Canada's in the house. Welcome, Carmen. Again, vicarious trauma, vicarious resilience, Be Strong Families website, go to events, and you can see when that is next going to be offered. Sandra from Los Angeles and Stephanie from Chicago. Hi, Stephanie. Hi, Sandra. Awesome. Okay, Andrew, go ahead and roll the slide. So there's several ways that we engage on the webinars. If you're not talking, you can please put your phone on mute. When you're ready to comment, use the raise hand function down at the bottom of the Zoom, and we'll unmute you. Then you're going to have to unmute yourself so we can hear you. Please be patient with us. Sometimes there's lots of people on the webinar, and we get to as many people as possible. Hi, Tiffany. Nice to have you in the house tonight. Joy. Great. And then feel free to type your comments in the group chat. Make sure it's going to all panelists and attendees. It's a great way to bring your voice into the room. And I will hit as many of the comments as I see. Sometimes they come in fast and furious, and I miss something. So if I do miss something, raise your hand because we want to hear from all of your comments. All right, and Sandra is already agreeing. What is she agreeing to? She's agreeing to our agreements. Our webinars, they all run on these agreements. So today we're going to speak from our own experiences using I statements. We're going to use the golden rule, and we're going to treat other people the way you want to be treated. Full presence. Please take this time to take care of yourself by getting new knowledge and skills. So don't multitask. And if you need a minute, take a minute. Oftentimes when we're talking about trauma, you may feel a little bit of a prick or a trigger. If you need to step away from it for a second, get yourself together, please feel free to do so. And then come on back. If you agree to these agreements, if you could just type agree or I agree in the chat, that would be great. I'm going to give everybody a second to do that. Awesome, lots of agrees coming in. Let me type mine in there as well. Perfect. Okay, Andrew, you can go ahead and roll the next slide. So we're going to talk about the effects of vicarious trauma. Yesterday, Tiffany Murphy and we talked about the definitions of vicarious trauma. Was anybody at our webinar yesterday and can either raise your hand and be unmuted or type in the chat what vicarious trauma is? So what's the word vicarious mean? Secondhand trauma. Thank you, Adrian. Nice to see you back. Missed it, but wondering if there was a recording. Yes, all of the recordings, Corin, are on our website. And oh, there you go. Andrew typed it into the chat and put a link. They're also on the YouTube. So vicarious means absorbing through somebody else's experiences. All right. And so when we're having vicarious trauma, it's not happening directly to us, but we're witnessing it. So what does the research tell us about the effects of vicarious trauma? Anyone? It's strong and can affect you. Yes, that is a truth. And who does it affect? It affects a lot of people in the helping professions, correct? And that would be a majority of us on this webinar. And it affects parents at a great rate too. When our kids go through trauma, it deeply affects us. So there's research by Alexandra Zaris Canales, and that has shown through working with traumatized people, helping professionals, we gain a firsthand embodied understanding that people can transform these traumatic experiences. And this is the flip side of the effects of vicarious trauma. So typically we talk about the bad effects, the negative effects, the ones that affect our health, that show up in a trauma response, a trauma exposure response. Right now, we're going to talk about the flip side of it. What trauma can do to us in a positive manner. So according to Alexandra Zaris Canales, it can transform our experiences. It can help us develop a more realistic and less idealistic worldview. It helps us gain deeper appreciation for our own lives and our own experiences. And it can help us gain a greater sensitivity to prejudices. I'm going to go ahead and put a link to that research in the chat here, so everybody can take a look for themselves during their free time. So Corin offered that it can have much more of an impact than the person experiencing it. It can also trigger trauma from our own past. That's what Pat offered. And Corin also wrote, makes us more aware of how our actions impact others. All true things. Andrew, you can go to the next question. So what have we learned from trauma survivors about how to overcome adversity? This is where I'd really like you to take a deep breath and to think about a story you can share, or an experience that you have where you learned something from a trauma survivor about how to overcome adversity in your own life. Can I get one or two people to share a story? Is any you can type? I don't know how fast you guys can type a whole story. Oh, Corin, thank you so much. Can you go ahead and unmute Corin?
Good morning, everyone. Corin Clark, Scranton, Pennsylvania. I am actually a trauma specialist, received my certification a few years ago, and work with Head Start and Early Head Start to support families of children with challenging behaviors. And so what I've learned from trauma survivors, including myself, who lost my mother at 14 months of age, is that we all experience our lives differently. And it really is the support systems that we put in play. It really is finding that one person to build our resiliency over time, and to start to understand how our trauma affects our choices, that how it affects our choices and how we can adjust and make changes to move forward to make different choices, and that we don't need to repeat the traumas of our past to have a successful future. And I think one of the benefits of going through training and gaining understanding is to know that we're not alone, that we've all overcome adversity and all of us have dealt in it our own way. And sometimes it turns out good and sometimes it doesn't, but we're not alone in this world. And I think especially with the recent pandemic, it has truly helped us to have more empathy and understanding for those around us. That's just my take on it.
Thanks so much, Corin. I appreciate your contribution. That's great. Anybody else like to share a story about what you learned from trauma survivors about how to overcome adversity? Adrian, go ahead. Actually, Andrew, you can unmute Adrian so she can go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. I thought that was you.
It is.
So, hi. Well, it's been a really rough couple of years for people. And in my friend group, one of my friends called me up and said, um, it's it's horrible. I have COVID. I'm in a small space and I have a large family and they're sick. They have heart conditions and other kinds of drama, and they don't have COVID. And we'd like to keep it that way, but I'm going to lose my house. I'm going to lose everything just treating this COVID. This was back in 2020 and early 2020 when they really didn't know what was going on. And I said, okay, so what are we talking about? And she said, it's the laundry. It's the cleaning supplies. We're wiped out, and we've done everything we can with shelters and help and food banks and whatever, but we're tapped out. And I said, well, okay, let's list it. And we have kind of a mutual aid relationship. We always have had a mutual aid relationship where, if there was a problem with paying for the utility or paying for the food, we would bring each other food, or we would find the right company to go to lower the utility rates for the future, whatever we could do to help each other. And so I took a long list of everything that was going on in her life and I assessed it. And then I turned around and I stuck it on my neighborhood Facebook group. And it's my neighborhood Facebook group, so I got away with it, right? But the point was that I was able to really help her specifically and also help everybody else. I didn't realize that I was going to be helping everybody else. I was really trying to be coy, and just help my friend. But the truth was that I helped everybody else. The whole community came together and they felt good bringing me a couple paper towels. They felt good bringing me Clorox wipes. They felt good dropping off $10 in coins so she could do laundry. And a thing of laundry soap here, a thing of dish soap there. And before I knew it, by the end of the weekend, I had just a ton of goods to bring down to her in shopping bags. Everything was new. Nothing was used or gross. Everybody was helpful and kind. And, I dropped it off and I could see her on the other side of the window. Okay, this is what I got on the other side of the window. Tears streaming down her face, tears streaming down my face. And all I had to do was drop it off on her front doorstep, wave and tell her we loved her. And it was, instead of being this horrible experience, it was a community love that was really sustaining and really brought things together. And when I think of Be Strong Families, Robyn knows a little bit more about why I'm doing this and how I do this, but Be Strong Families, we're bringing this into our community next month. We're really excited. And we're doing this specifically for this reason, for this demographic of people, so that nobody else has to go through it alone. We're all here to help each other, and when we're in a position to give a couple little things and maybe gather more people to do a couple more little things, the huge problem seems much less, much more diminished and easy to take care of.
Thank you so much, Adrienne. I appreciate that. So I'm just going to follow that up with a couple of things. The number one, I met Adrienne through a Parent Cafe Training Institute, and she's over in the California, the Los Angeles area. And her group is so special because they are specifically trying to alleviate some identified issues in their community by bringing parents together. And so one of the things that I learned from Adrienne, from her story right now, is that we're better together. And that is something that she learned from the survivor of this trauma, that we're better together. Thank you so much, Adrienne, for coming back today and for sharing your experience. Can I get one more person to share what you've learned from trauma survivors about how to overcome adversity? Corin, while Adrienne was talking, she said, find your tribe and we can ask for help. Yes. Awesome. Okay, Andrew, go ahead and go to the third question. All right. So Adrienne just gave us a beautiful example of beauty in the midst of trauma. Does anybody have any other ones? Something beautiful that happened. Human connection. And Pat Fox offered a friend's son committed suicide. Pat, do you want to speak on that? Okay, go ahead, and Andrew's going to unmute you.
So my friend, her son was in college and committed suicide, and she's a police officer. And because of the way the police officer came to her house and told her, she has become more compassionate when she has to go to a family to tell them about a tragedy. And she also now does a lot of talks on suicide prevention and helps other families who may have to go through it. So she's kind of taken what happened to her and turned it around for a better, to help others having to, to try and avoid what she went through, or she's there just to help support them.
Thank you so much, Pat, for sharing that with us. That is a beauty in the midst of trauma. Anybody else have an example of some beauty that they found in the midst of trauma? Tracy Johnson offered, the beauty in the midst of trauma is the strength you realize you have. That sometimes goes unnoticed. Thank you, Tracy. So I can share something beautiful in the midst of trauma. So like you, I've just lived through a pandemic, and I am the mom of 8 kids. A lot of them live at home with me. One of my sons, one of my middle-aged sons, has a daughter, a 2-year-old daughter. She was just 7 months old when the pandemic started, just a little tiny baby. And he got laid off. Terrible, lack of income, lack of the feeling of productivity. All of those things are traumatizing for a young man who's trying to get established. But the beauty of that, of the layoff, was now he got to spend almost a year with his daughter every day. He made her breakfast every day and read stories to her every day. And the bond that he formed was such a strong bond. And now that he's back to work, she is just completely daddy's girl and waits for him at home. So we could have been sad and crying and wringing our hands, oh, what are we going to do? But instead, we really tried to focus on establishing that relationship to a real, how many parents get to have that year off of a job? Not many. Thank you, Yolanda. And Pat Fox also offered, I was also going to say that I think her turning trauma into something to help others has made me think on how I can help others going through trauma. That's awesome. Yolanda said, awesome. Adrienne sending me cute little private messages about her cat. That's why I've got this big smile. She knows I'm a lover of cats. All right. And Corin said, my whole career is exactly that, Pat. Good, Corin. I love that you're doing something that's so meaningful. So many people on the webinar do such really great work. All right, Andrew, we only have 9 minutes, so can you get to the next slide? Awesome. So here's another time for storytelling. I love stories. So tell me a story about how other people's trauma helped you to become the person you are today? And while you're thinking about that, Carmen said that time is precious. Yes, Carmen, we really looked at it as a gift. In Canada, our combined parental and maternity leaves, parents can share up to 18 months. Yeah, I wish I had that. I really wish that. All right, so how has other people's trauma helped you to become the person you are today? I will answer this one too. So my father was a veteran of Vietnam. He came home with PTSD and was never diagnosed. And although growing up, I knew something was off, I never knew what the name of it was or why he had some erratic behaviors at times. Through work and talking to a lot of people, I realized what that was and really can pinpoint growing up in that fashion made me who I was, made me observant of things that other people might miss, and made me sensitive to other people's moods and functioning. Anybody else have a story? All right, Andrew, go to the next slide or the next question. What are some other practices that can help build vicarious resilience that we haven't covered? Tomorrow, you guys are going to dig deep into this. My colleague, Nadia Washington, is going to really delve deep into connecting the vitality domains to vicarious resilience. Andrew put the link for the webinar registration in the chat. Cheryl, go ahead and go first. Can you unmute Cheryl, Andrew? Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, how are you? I was actually I had raised my hand for the previous thing about how trauma has created you, made you to the person today.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was wanting to comment like the reason why I went into social work is because like I've always was growing up, my friends and stuff, they would tell me these stories that were like so moving, and I could see how, and it just was, I always had a knack of hearing people's stuff and then wanting to help them and understand and try to help people through their pain and try to become something, more, use that. So therefore, that's kind of why I went into social work, because I felt that, a lot of times people don't like what we're learning here about how to become resilient and what things we can do and how to help one another, or knowing that they're not alone. Those things a lot of people just don't know. So being able to spread that and help others, is why I went into the field I did, because I just had so many friends that had so many different experiences growing up that I just wanted to be able to find a way to give back.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. Thanks for sharing, and really thanks for giving back. Thanks for doing your life's work. And Corinne, go ahead. Can you unmute Corinne?
So it kind of falls with both of these. Obviously, at 14 months old, my father and I shared the trauma of him losing the love of his life. And he did not remarry until I was 13, but both he and my stepmother, their early childhood trauma and trauma being raised, both in families that believed in corporal punishment. Both of my parents have high adverse childhood experience scores. And so one of the things that I have learned, and really is a vicarious resilience factor, is understanding and forgiveness. In my work, I work with a lot of people who live in fight, flight, or freeze, and to be able to understand that and where they're coming from, and that this is their reality and their truth, and then to also be able to practice forgiveness in those moments has been so valuable, because people do the best they can in the moment. And it's not, I love when we switch the question from what's wrong with you to what happened to you. It helps so much easier. And for me, in that resilience, being able to forgive others just takes such a load off of my shoulders and allows me to do the work that I do. So I think that resilience really is grounded in that understanding, and that ability to forgive.
Thank you so much, Corinne. And thank you to everybody who has brought their voice into the room today. Rochelle Prince said that is pretty much my testimony as well. Experiencing others' trauma has made me want to work to help others. Thank you, Rochelle. And Adrian, objectivity and compassion are different. True statement. Andrew, is there a third question? All right, so we're not going to answer this question out loud, but I just want you to take this with you. And I want you to think about it this afternoon. How can you incorporate the practices that we've talked about today within your organization and your work with families? That's what this is all about. The webinars for me are about all of us coming together across our world, basically, and giving each other motivation and inspiration and great, good grounding ideas to make what we do matter all that much more. There's a poll that is up on the screen. If you could answer that, that would be appreciated. Tomorrow, like I said, we're going to talk about using the vitality domains to strengthen vicarious resilience. On Thursday, there'll be a mini workshop by my friend Kristen Robinson. She's going to talk about trauma relieving yoga and breathing techniques. On Friday, we're going to give you a taste of vitality through a cafe. A cafe is a guided conversation where we talk about things that matter. Cafes provide a safe emotional space that parents can use for deep self-reflection while they're learning from their peers. Relationship-based practice and making effective referrals will be next Monday, and guess what? I'll be back. So we're going to talk about intake practices, what's helpful and what's not. And then on Tuesday, we have Brenda Griffin Kinsler, and she's just a delight, guys. You're going to have so much fun with her. She's going to talk about determining real needs and providing real support. Next slide. And then join an upcoming Be Strong Families workshop. We're doing online Living the Protective Factors on August 26th. There's a QR code there you can zip with your phone, or Andrew's got the registration information in the chat. On behalf of Be Strong Families, myself and Andrew, we appreciate you so much, guys. Thanks for coming back. Thanks for lending your voice. And I hope that you have a really great end of your day. Bye-bye.